There is something strange about sitting in an IMAX theater for the first Star Wars movie in 7 years and feeling absolutely nothing when it ends. Not anger, not disappointment, just the mild, pleasant emptiness you get after eating something that tasted fine and left no impression whatsoever. The Mandalorian and Grogu opened this Memorial Day weekend to roughly $91 to $94 million over 4 days. Domestically, numbers that, for literally any other property, would read as a success. For Star Wars, they represent the lowest theatrical opening in a franchise history, tracking below Solo, which itself was considered a catastrophe. The last time this franchise played in theaters, The Rise of Skywalker grossed over $1 billion worldwide. That was 2019. Jon Favreau's feature-length spin-off lands at $160 to $170 million globally. The math is not flattering. But let's not bury the lead with box office eulogies. The more interesting question is why, and the answer has less to do with the film's quality than with what the film represents and what it refuses to be. So let's talk about what happened to Star Wars in theaters. When Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012 for $4.5 billion, the deal came with an implicit promise: Star Wars would be a theatrical institution. The Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, these were cultural events. People dressed up, people argued, people cared, which is the only thing worse than people not showing up. Then came The Rise of Skywalker in 2019, a movie that closed the Skywalker saga with the energy of a company filing for bankruptcy on a Friday afternoon. The reviews were mixed, the discourse was exhausted, and for the next 7 years, Star Wars moved to television. What's easy to forget, though, is that the Disney Plus move was not a retreat. The Mandalorian Season 1 is really excellent TV. It's lean, atmospheric, emotionally specific in the way that only a half-hour episodic structure can force. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni understood that the franchise needed to shrink before it could grow again. They borrowed from the Sergio Leone Western playbook. A laconic bounty hunter, a baby, moral simplicity in a morally corrupt galaxy, and it worked brilliantly on a 65-inch TV. The problem is that brilliant on TV is not the same as ready for theatrical release. Moving The Mandalorian to the big screen doesn't automatically scale it up. It just makes the seams more visible. The Mandalorian and Grogu opens with a sequence involving AT-ATs, the giant walking camels, and that opening really rips. I liked it. And it made me think I should have seen this in 4D, because there's a scene where the Mandalorian is like in one of these little AT-AT things and he's hopping down a cliff with Grogu, and I was like, that would be awesome in 4DX. It was really good in IMAX, that scene. The scope is promising. Ludwig Göransson's score, as always, is extraordinary. Orchestral, textured hip-hop rhythms bleeding into synth-heavy techno, completely singular in the Star Wars canon. The man has 3 Oscars, and he's clearly giving this everything. In a movie this thin, the score does more emotional lifting than anything else on screen. And the plot, as established in the first 30 seconds by a villain we're never going to see again, the Imperial Remnant is still scattered. The New Republic needs a bounty hunter, Din Djarin, voiced entirely by Pedro Pascal, who's present on screen for probably 2 minutes. This is mostly, his role's mostly done by a stunt performer. But anyway, the Mandalorian, who's tasked by Sigourney Weaver's Colonel Ward to rescue Rada the Hutt, voiced by Jeremy Allen White, from a gladiator prison run by a human collector named Janu, who keeps exotic aliens in cages. Martin Scorsese voices a 4-armed food stand chef. This is a real movie. The first hour does move, though. The gladiator sequence has energy. Grogu's puppeteering is good. There are moments of real craft in how physical he feels, and how he's not CGI. I do appreciate that. And the film is at its best when he's being given, something to do, when Grogu isn't just, it's cute little Grogu. I like when they give him stuff to do. The issue isn't that these scenes are bad. The issue is that they add up to nothing. The most damning thing about The Mandalorian and Grogu is not that it's bad, it's that it's a Saturday morning cartoon with an IMAX budget. The entertainment is there, the stakes are not. Think about the structural DNA of the first Star Wars from 1977. Luke Skywalker starts on Tatooine, a backwater nothing planet, but his arc is outward and upward. He meets Obi-Wan, he goes to the cantina where he meets Han Solo. Then they go to the Death Star. Each new element introduces a new personality, a conflict, a piece of the world. Darth Vader is shown, withheld, he's shown again, before he finally confronts our hero in a tight corridor. The movie earns its climax by making us care about everyone in the room. Phantom Menace from 1999, which is often invoked as the franchise's nadir, actually has more in common with this film than its reputation suggests, and not in the ways you'd want. Both are origin-adjacent stories that feel more interested in world tourism than character pressure. The difference is Phantom Menace at least attempts mythic weight. Darth Maul exists to be frightening. Qui-Gon's death lands because the film has spent 2 hours making you care about him. Janu, the villain of The Mandalorian and Grogu, is introduced, dismissed, and forgotten. His entire characterization is he keeps exotic creatures in cages, and the first thing he says to Grogu is something like, "Oh, you would look magnificent in one of these," in this typical British villain voice. He has no history, there's no real menace, no moment where the movie asks us to reckon with him as a threat. He is a narrative obstacle dressed in villain's clothing. And, the Mandalorian gets injured in the second half. Grogu has to care for him. This is supposed to be the emotional axis of the film. The apprentice becoming the protector. The son saving the father. It should land like a gut punch, but it doesn't because the film hasn't really done the work. There's no conflict between them, no tension, no moment earlier in the movie where the dynamic has been tested enough for this reversal to feel earned. It's a beat in search of a buildup. Like there's moments where Grogu is manning the cockpit and the Mandalorian's like, open the doors, and Grogu's like firing missiles, and it's funny. It's like he doesn't know how to fly the ship. But I don't know, you could have a moment where their bond actually gets tested, where Grogu puts the Mandalorian in danger, and then that bond gets tested, so when he actually has to save him later, it feels earned, but there's none of that, so it just feels like there's no real conflict. The comparison, that keeps suggesting itself, maybe because both films share a desert palette, a mythic register, and an interest in Chosen One mythology, is Dune Part 2. Denis Villeneuve's film is slower, significantly slower. There are audiences who bounced off it for exactly this reason, and a Disney executive could make a reasonable argument. Star Wars should be fun, kinetic, accessible. Dune is not particularly accessible. Its first act is dense. Its characters speak in incomplete implications. It asks you to do work. But the work is the point. Dune Part 2 earns its spectacle, because the spectacle means something. When Paul rides the sandworm, you've been waiting for it for 2 films. The stakes are legible because the film has taken the time to define them. Zendaya's Chani is a fully realized counterweight to Paul's arc. The villains, Fade Ralpha especially, are felt. And The Mandalorian and Grogu has gorgeous city shots. It has swooping IMAX vistas. It has an aspect ratio that expands at key moments. And none of it coheres into stakes because the movie won't slow down long enough to let any of these places or people mean anything. It's Dune stripped of its philosophy and replaced with video game cutscenes. You fly to a planet, you accomplish a mission, you fly to the next planet. The volume technology, the LED wall production method that made the show famous and cost-effective, is visibly straining under theatrical scrutiny. The backgrounds look flat, the color palette is desaturated and uniform. This is not a movie that was designed for IMAX. It was designed for a nice TV, and it's been upscaled. The fix is not that complicated, though it's not easy either. The movie needed a story about what the Mandalorian and Grogu are actually afraid of losing. The show was good because it understood that the Mandalorian's creed, "This is the way," was not just armor, but psychology. His code is his wound. Season 2's finale, where he removes his helmet for Grogu, costs something. This film costs nothing. Imagine a version where the conflict is interior, where Grogu's growing power creates a rift between them, where the Mandalorian's rigid code is put in direct opposition to what Grogu actually needs, where the rescue mission isn't just a rescue mission, but a crucible that forces both characters to choose. You could still have the action, you could still have that Ludwig Göransson score, which fucking slaps. You just have to make the action matter. And the franchise is not dead. Star Wars Starfighter, directed by Sean Levy with Ryan Gosling, arrives in 2027 and will tell us more about where Star Wars actually stands. This film was always going to be a transitional entry, the franchise testing the water after a long absence. And the water is fine, but that's the problem. So The Mandalorian and Grogu is in theaters now. Göransson's score is available everywhere. Go see this, guys. If you want to see the new Star Wars movie, I recommend it. It's nothing great. I'd give it like a 5 out of 10.